Hey everyone, Joe here from ActionX. Welcome to What's in the Tube, where it's our show where we review things in the world of television. Most of the time, we are doing episode by episode reviews of shows that are currently airing brand new seasons, only either on network TV or streaming or some outlier broadcaster somewhere out in the world. However, at times we do these what we call seasonal reviews, where sometimes we come back or sometimes we check in on a show that we previously watched. Maybe it's a new show or whatever the case might be. We're here for High School Musical, the series, the season 2 review. And I preface that as saying is that it's been so long since, in general, just a little background history, is that we've already reviewed every single episode of High School Musical, the series, when it came out. Well, it finished up last year, which, again, for me, it sounds, for me, again, just me, it sounds crazy to say that because, yeah, a year ago we were just wrapping it up, and now here we are going back into season 2, because before we began the final season of episode review, we did a whole season 1 definitive review where we went out spoiler, we went super deep, because we had done reviews for these seasons in the past, but they were more like in the non-spoiler capacity. So now it's been a few years, you've had your opportunities, now we're just blasting all in, and the timing just feels right. I've been a little somber this summer, kind of like lacking a little something in my life, and I was kind of like missing like music. I was missing the musicale of things, and I'm like, well, we don't have High School Musical 4, a proper one. I mean, I heard rumors Zac Efron might do one, or at least Disney's gonna pay him a fuck ton of money to do a fourth one. Zach, take the money, take the money. Even if Vanessa's not there, actually, no, you need Vanessa back. You know what? We'll talk about that in the future. My hopefulness is that when we do our definitive season 4 review in 2 years from now, that we will get High School Musical 4. That is my hopefulness. I don't know why I'm putting a timetable on that. Zac Efron is like super busy, and I don't know. I don't know where I'm going to anymore. Let's get back to the topic at hand. Here we are. We are talking about today season 2 of High School Musical, the series. This is the full spoiler-filled review. There is going to be, I'm spoiling everything about it, so if you have not yet seen season 2, if you have not yet watched it at all, you've had a few years. If you're a High School Musical fan, you should have already watched this. And I should have done this a few years ago, but I decided not to do it. Like, I want to give it time, give it some fresh air, because at the time, I said this much. I think season 2, 3 years ago, fell in hindsight to season 1, where I feel like season 1 had a magic touch, like the unexpectability. And, that for me, again, going into that show was like, I thought they were going to like make a modern adaptation of High School Musical. What obviously some few twists. I knew that going into it. But the fact that they did something different with the genre, with the pre-existing storytelling and everything, that I kind of knew that following that up was going to be hard. And then when I watched it, finishing it, I was like, yeah, that was a very hard act to follow. They did the best they could. And even now, having watched the whole show, for me, season 2 at the time was, I think, the lowest on my list, just because that every other season kind of did something a little bit different. Season 2 fell more season 1, and I feel like when it comes to TV shows nowadays, like it's really hard to do that. Like sometimes that's exactly what people want. Like keep that same consistent level of what the show you loved is, but at the same time, obviously, don't get too dry with it. Don't like to get too burned out on it. And I feel like season 2 was, I think, the only season, in my opinion, that really kind of followed up the previous one. If for me, like when we get to season 3, season 4, I'll talk more of that specifically down the road. That with those seasons, they kind of had to reinvent themselves. They kind of was like a soft reset point while carrying over the storylines from the previous seasons. And I feel like season 2 is more like the in-between child, where like, okay, we are progressing with season 1, and at the same time, they are writing some real-world stuff into it. We'll get more into that in a minute. And at the same time, trying to fulfill that second part of the story, since this is the second half of their school year. This is like picking up all those threads from season 1 that, again, for the life of me, like I was surprised that a High School Musical show was going to go for 4 seasons, because it's just something that's kind of weird. Like, when Disney announced it, that we were making a show about High School Musical, but it's not, but it's carrying the name of it. It's kind of picking up the legacy and kind of running with it. I honestly thought at the time, like, we were not going to get season 2. We were not even going to get to where we were now. I was not expecting that whatsoever. Because, like, as much as I love High School Musical, like, it was such a dated thing. Like, in 06 to 08, and, okay, fine, 2011, when I count Sharpays, but that was such a very unique place where I don't think the market was there in nowadays. Like, even if they talk about a proper High School Musical 4, I don't see it, because it's like, are we doing it because we have a story, or are we doing it because of nostalgia? And because I love the story, and yeah, we'll talk more about that prospect in a couple of years from now. But for me, it was just like, do we really need that? Is there a place for High School Musical? And I was, again, happy to get at least one season, let alone 4. That following up with season 2, like, how do you approach it? How do you make it stand out? And how do you make it like the natural evolution, as well as trying to, try to also keep the fans engaged? Like, there were so many tools where, like, I think streaming shows have a bit of a more difficult challenge than network television, where, like, network television, you can make the next season the next year and people will be totally happy if it's the same or at least better, as long as it's not worse. With streaming, you take much longer time to make these seasons, for better or for worse. And, by the time you get there, it's like, is it going to be worth it or not? Because, like, we don't even know we're going to go for another round. And I feel like now, with all that pandering, with all that background rambling nonsense I usually like to do out of the way, my spoiler-free opinion of High School Musical: The Musical Series Season 2, 3 years removed from my original watching, I still want to say, barring where Season 3 and Season 4 is going to rank in my rewatch, I'm still going to put Season 2 below Season 1, but I have more respect for it now. I have more appreciation for it. Knowing the context of where things are going, knowing where, how did certain decisions get made, and at the end of the day, just like, where are we standing here with this story? And I feel like this season feels like the evolution of these characters and this found family, at the same time wrapping up things from season 1 in a great bow tie, where, like, that was the end of one book. Now we are going to start the next book, which will be season 3. And yeah, some real world elements. Obviously at the time there was a lot of things going on. There was the COVID-19 pandemic. There was obviously Olivia Rodrigo's ginormous rise to fame during the pandemic period. Joshua Bassett also blowing up a little bit. Like, there was just so many elements that were happening where, like, it kind of painted the picture of, like, where are we going to go from here? It was, kind of one of the first time where, like, like, we've seen this in streaming, where, like, actors who are on a Netflix show or a Hulu show or Amazon Prime show, they suddenly blow up and now they're getting movies. They're getting, like, these big, like, the next level of their careers. But how do you fit in the place where you started from? How do you fit that in? And I feel like that was such an interesting challenge, where, like, you begin shooting the season, you have to take a pause, and then all this happened. Like, that has to influence the decision. And kid you not, I do believe there has been, this season is multiple versions of season 2. I imagine there was a much more different season 2 planned out, but they wrote what it is here mainly because of those real world influences. And again, normally, yeah, you want to tell the story you want to tell, but, like, if you're an optimist and you get to tell more, you want to make sure your characters have, proper ways to go. And again, knowing what I know about season 3 and season 4, I think this was the season that had to be a necessary season to give 3 and 4 the reason for their existence, for better or for worse, for the cost of this season. But again, I appreciate this season so much. I like it more the second time around. Now, binging it, having the appreciation of everything, and I think the writers, the showrunner, I think they did a bang-up job doing the best they could within this situation they were in at the time. I don't even want to imagine where things were during the pre-production season 2. I don't even want to think about that. Like, the production was probably fun. I'll bet some tensions, probably, if gossip is to say the least. But at the end of the day, I think season 2 is a worthy successor to season 1. I think it concludes the story of where season 1 began very well. Abides some things that were not expected, but at the same time, I think at the end of the day, you enjoy the ride, enjoy these characters. And again, at the end of the day, it's the characters that carry the journey. Like, the story could be crap, which at times it was just kind of a little questionable. But as long as the characters are, like, they have a purpose, they are still engaging, they still have somewhere to go, then that's all that really counts. Again, that's for me. Like, like, a lot of these shows on the air, like, they're alive because of the characters, because they're engaging enough that you want to see more of them, that you're willing to tune in for whatever is next from these characters next. So with that all being said, I want to go full deeper into spoilers. So again, if you have not yet seen High School Musical, the musical, this series, season 2, on Disney Plus right now, please go do so. But again, with all that being said, there's your warning. So good luck. See you there. And if you are watching season 2, somehow if you're just cutting in and out, yeah, we have a whole episode by episode review series up. Go check it out right there on our channel. And there you go. So yeah, so going into, the story, again, like, there was so much speculation when season 2 was announced. Like, where do we go from here? Like, do we just immediately follow with HSM2? But that's a summer thing. We're still in the winter / spring portion. Like, that doesn't really make sense. Like, and also, if you were just to do the movies, you would only just be limited to three movies. And thematically, they made High School Musical 1 kind of work as the musical portion to where the characters were in season 1. How do you follow that up in season 2? How do you really, like, figure out where do we really, how do we really go from there? And that obviously pivots to where we are now, where they adapted such a classic, Beauty and the Beast, which I kid you not, I have not watched. I am a horrible human being. I have not seen much of the classic Disney films. My partner has, but like not me specifically. But yeah, no. So I'm like, I think I want to say, I promised myself during that review series, I'm gonna take a week off. I'm just gonna like watch Beauty and the Beast and then like come back to this with the perspective of it. And I was like, no, I can't do it. I really can't. I feel like I know more about Beauty and the Beast because of this season, and I still haven't watched it. It's been like 3 years from now. I still have not had time to go in and watch either the movie or the live action remake. I just haven't. Although I actually do own one of the direct-to-video VHS tapes in my collection, so that's pretty funny to really think about. But yeah, no, so, and I feel like in a way, the writers knowing what they're doing, like, they know the lineage of these Disney classics, they know where these characters are, and at the end of the day, Beauty and the Beast, in a way, only is serviceable to some of the characters, not to the whole cast, but at the end of the day, what I said before is that this season feels like evolving, like really deepening the connection between these characters. We're still relatively in the same position, like we are, just picking up where we left off kind of from season 1, where, they are a team. They are not, I don't think they're a family just quite yet. I think by the end of the season, you do get that feeling. But, the last 3 months of their lives have been like kind of the most stressful, kind of the most like, where are we going type of ordeal ever. And, it just showcases that, like, yeah, no, they found this kinship with each other. Like, when you find your clique in high school specifically, being such a special time in people's life where, like, you're growing up, you're kind of evolving from that kid perspective you used to have and now becoming kind of like samples of what you're meant to be growing up. And we'll get more about that in future seasons. But like, here was like, like growing these characters up just a tad bit more, like, like, it's not always sunshine and roses. Like, you think you reached the end of the road, but I'm like, no, there's still more road to do. Whether it's going to lead to even better things or go down a divergence, you really don't know. You just can't really, you can't predict those sort of things till like after you actually sit down and like, realize where are you standing in all these. And, we pick things up, I want to say, just before Christmas break. Everything seems to be kind of the up and up. Ricky's on top of the world. He's got Nene back. He got this whole new family behind him. He's like kind of like the de facto captain, like the Troy Bolton of the group, trying to like champion everyone, like ready to like, we're gonna repeat, if not better, for the spring musicale. And yeah, it's gonna be golden. Miss Jen found her place within these halls. Solidifying herself as a real presence for the school. To lean behind, you have Gina kind of like becoming a much more open, available person, not just the closed up person she was back in season 1. EJ still being there, and everyone else just kind of fitting in. And I could probably go for miles here, but like, everyone is now ready to embrace these new changes. They're ready to embrace this new future together, whether or not it's going to like lead directly to where they think they're going to be. At the other time, it's not. And, I think, again, like, this beginning portion was filmed before COVID. So I'm like, I definitely feel there was a very different, like, these are not the same characters. Like, when you begin season 2 and then you end season, these are not the same characters. These are like, and I feel like the moment you can accept that, it's like, that is such a big thing where like, there was growth, there was change, there was development, there was a slight change that you kind of like, it's like that slow push, and then when you realize the push has been done, you realize, oh, we're in a 180 degree turn. Like, this is not the expectation I thought we were going to be at, like, consistent throughout. And, again, like, like, even they make fun of it, like, oh, we're just going to do HSM2 again. Like, we're just going to be, happily ever after, do that sort of thing again. Like, as a team, as a family, just kind of like, let's repeat it. Like, just like, let's repeat it and be successful. That's it. But of course, obviously, of course, the past comes back. The past always comes back to bite you in the ass. And you're just like, okay, now I really want revenge. And again, like, I feel like some characters, like, do not go in the direction that they should have this year. But I'm like, you know what? They gotta learn. They just gotta learn a little bit, so, and then that's kind of how we pivot off to where things have to be. Where at the same time, well, everyone's kind of gearing up for the winter, for the now spring musicale. The other thing is that, at the same time, Nini, if you remember from the end of season 1, got that offer to possibly join that very exclusive art school that she's been kind of like, low key dying to go to, and now she's got the opportunity. But like, she finally found her place in East High, and now she's gonna go. So like, how do you really? Same with Ricky. Like, how do you deal with all that? How do you really like adjust to that that direction, that heading, and yeah, how do you just get through it? And I feel like this is the perfect time to actually catapult off to like actually talking about the characters specifically. To where they are, and I'm going to go backwards in terms of like the importance of not starting with the teachers. Teacher Mr. Maduro is like, Mr. Maduro is a pretty cool guy. In season 1, he was kind of an uptight ass prick, but like it's like appearances are deceiving. And then season 2, he kind of like it's kind of obvious he's got a thing for Miss Jen. It's like very, very obvious. Like, just like I think she's the only teacher that actually pays him attention and gives him credibility. And it's like like, okay, a female's actually interested in me in terms of actually conversing with me. So I'm like, okay, maybe this could be something else. And I'm just like, is this poor timing for him? He's just like, this season he can't catch a break. Like, it just reminds me of, again, I'm not trying to be disrespectful or anything. It's just how my perspective of the world is. It's like, you're a teacher and you're just watching all these kids doing, striving for the best and biggest things. And then you're just there, like, talking about like, oh, I was so interested in teaching in Caltech. And then like, now I'm here in the middle of Utah teaching high school, but he still likes his job. He's just like, he kind of feels like where things could have been, like, where could have that gone to really? And it's like, it's kind of a little sad and depressing, especially like for me, as I view it in a different way as I get older, it's like, as I grow and like, eventually there's going to come a day where like, I'm not considered young anymore, where like, I'll be one of the old, like the middle age of the old people. And then I'll be watching the new people kind of step into my place. And I'm like, I'm not looking forward to that. I'm not really yet, but I feel like Mr. Maduro definitely like kind of is more open up, especially to EJ and Miss Jen this year, like, just talking about just their problems and like, him trying to be the best he can to like really help them out, which I definitely feel like, is just a sign of him opening up his shell. It's very, very, very technological shell. And to Miss Jen, Miss Jen last season was kind of like the try hard, trying to like, be hip and cool, trying to like, make her way into like, this is where my life is now, trying to get that second win, trying to like, get my shot at glory through kids that are probably even more talented than me. But at the same time, she does gain a kinship with the students throughout the first season. This season's kind of like her still doing that, still again, like talk about what we said before, evolving and deepening her relationships with like Carlos, with Nini, with Ricky, with the entire Wildcats. But at the same time, kind of having to deal with a shred of her past, where her ex-boyfriend's back in town teaching at their rival school, and about to be, he's a prestigious actor. He's done a lot of Broadway musicals, and they begged him to come back to direct their spring musicale so they can participate in the Menkeys, which is basically the Tonys for kids, for high school, the high school equivalency of the Tonys. And she's like, okay, well, she kind of has a bit more shades of the adulthood in her, where like she does care about the kids. She does see this as an opportunity for them to like jump to the next level, like ahead of schedule. But at the same time, she's like, I would really want to like, rub it in his face that, he becomes a teacher and he fails to win. Like that's kind of what she really wants deep down. And for better or for worse, some of those decisions she make, like, again, like when you're doing things for the wrong reason, you tend to get corrupted by it, and you start acting a bit differently. And, you see more about that towards, we get closer and closer, closer to the end of the season, where like, she's starting to become a little bit more unhinged. Like, again, it is about the kid, but at the same time, deep down, she really just wants to like rub it in his face that like, yeah, no, you will not win. I will get the last laugh. I will use my kids to beat you. And I'm just like, it's kind of a little harsh there, Miss Jen, a little bit harsh. Weirdly enough, her being put in a love triangle of sorts between Mr. Maduro and Ricky's dad was interesting. It was actually an interesting pairing because, again, there's not that many adult characters in the show specifically, so like, there's only so much you can do, really. I think Ricky's dad's the only consistent, recurring adult character, for better or for worse, really. And, like, he just happens to, like, be attracted to the first woman he sees. But, like, again, like, you can say a lot about that where, like, it's the loneliness. Like, he doesn't really, it's not real affection, really. It's more like, oh, like, here's a woman that's interested in me and I'm single. Like, this could be my chance to, like, really, like, kind of, like, get back into things, after being divorced last year. And, like, sometimes, the relationship next after, like, a crucial one may not be the one, but it is a step closer to where you want to get to. But I will say Miss Jen does grow a lot because of the mistakes she made, whether that is a very direct mistake. But at the end of the day, her relationship with this cast is very much the key here. Like, she is, I think, like, you see a lot about Miss Starvis with the Wildcats, or Miss Starvis with Troy specifically. I feel like, like, again, they only had 3 movies to tell, and that wasn't even a primary focus. Here, having it be a primary focus, like, I feel like this season really solidifies, like, to them, she is, like, kind of their theater mom, like, another mom to all of them. Like, she does care about all of them. She does care about their, safety, their futures, their well-being. She does care about that, and that's still showcased more often than not than her, like, just trying to win the Menkeys. And I think that honestly shines better through more than the other stuff, where like, but it is noticeable, especially towards the end, where like she becomes really obsessed with like, we are so close, we need to do better, we need to, like, as soon as we get the nomination, we get to have another repeat performance live, then we're gonna really ace it in the park. And that's kind of when she starts to lose her jive a little bit. But thankfully, it's not one of those pure Descent to Madnesses type of thing. That would be a different story, mind you. Now, going into the Wildcats specifically, I think we'll start with the newest batch. Well, he was in season 1, but like, he got promoted in the in-between, Seb. For me, Seb, he was always like, like, again, it's that the recurring character that kind of makes a hit. It's kind of like, yeah, I like this guy. I want to see more of this guy. And the writers notice, like, oh, let's bump him up. And like, obviously he's dating Carlos, one of the main cast members. So like, it kind of makes sense for like, well, if you're dating one of the main cast members, that makes you a main cast member. Like, it's not the most organic way to like, get yourself promoted, but it does work from time to time. And this being the case here. And, I don't exactly remember everything about Seb from season 1. I know, like, he very much was, like, a background person. Then Carlos and him kind of had their growths and their emotions, and they, with the big dance back in season 1, and then, like, them slowly growing their relationship. This season was more like, I think, in all honesty, like, of all of them, like, this is one of those, we got 2 natural organic relationships here, like, in terms of, like, that grows and nurtures, and, like, this was more like very minor problems, very 50-50 similarities to 50-50 differences. And, it just becomes a little bit of a showmanship of like, how much are you willing to put effort into your relationship? Where, like, let's be honest, some high school relationships, you don't really put that much effort into things because, like, well, there's going to be way more down the road. So I'm like, if it doesn't work out here, it doesn't. But, like, for these 2, they're in such a unique circumstance where, like, no, we do care about each other. We do love each other. Like, we're definitely going to give this, like, a pretty big boom, and like, throughout the season. Like, I like to say at the end of the day, they are the it couple for the season. Even though you have other ones at focus here, like, this is the one for me where, like, yeah, no, they are the it couple. They are very much like, they are like going through it a bit by bit, but like, they're getting stronger from it. They're really like caring for each other. They just want to keep pushing that envelope forward to like where they got to be next and what they got to do. And also, I just like Seb as a character. Whenever it's not like focused on Carlos or that, he is very much like a funny character. He's got his own style of humor that I'm like, you know what? It does hit every time you say it. It does very much hit. Going to Carlos being for me the Latinx representation of the show. I feel again like similar to coming up when we talk about Courtney and a bit of Ashlyn and Big Red as well. Like they're ready to open up. Like they were kind of like secondary in the last production, but like again them growing this kinship with this group and with this family, like, you know, they're ready to like, you know, step it up. They're ready to like take the next level, which for Carlos is like actually performing. You know, he's always been like the Ryan being the choreographer and, you know, maybe getting a moment there and there, but now you know this boy's ready. He's ready to like, you know, really step it up, really like, you know, take the lead, not the lead, but like really like ready to like, you know, be on stage and like actually show everyone what he's made out of, not just from like a background perspective. And I feel like, again, like this is all new territory for him, you know, and he's very much like vocal about that. Where like, you know, he's not used to having this many friends. He's not used to having a boyfriend. He's not used to like, you know, being on stage. Like these are all new elements for him, and you know, change can be scary, but this is a very much of a positive change where like he is growing his retro. I forgot the word for it, but like he's growing his armor. He's growing his tool, his talent skills. Like he's really ready to like actually push that bar forward on himself, you know, and not just in his relationship with Seb, what we talked about, but like mainly with Gina, where, you know, again, like these two, like, again, both having much more experience in a dancing background than like actually acting and such. They kind of had that kinship, like that, not kinship, but like that connection with each other back in season 1. But Gina was Gina back then. So now her being new Gina. And I forget, there was this line in like the middle of the season where like she's like, oh, I don't want to be Gina 1.0 again. Like, yeah, you did not earn that line. I'm sorry. That's just like, that felt forced. I'm sorry. Like, you know, we get it. Like, you were a different person back then. That was like months ago. We get it. Like, I don't think enough time has passed for you to like mention yourself in a past context. But yeah, but no, but between them, like, you know, it is very much like, you know, like how real life is, where like you might have things alike with someone else, but maybe you don't like them at first, or maybe it just doesn't get along to you. Like, you have conversations. And I feel like that's a key part where this season, where like, you know, things are a little bit more better after you converse about it, after you have a conversation with the other person about things. So like, we don't like do the traditional like high school drama where we drag it on for multiple episodes. We don't talk about it. We indirectly talk about it, or like we say things in the wrong moment that kind of like extends the process. And then when we actually have the conversation, it's like, oh, that was just a misunderstanding. And I'm like, I'm very thankful these two actually, like, you know, got along, and then you really got to see them when we got to the midpoint of the season, where like you got to really see Carlos and Gina actually thrive off each other. They got to really like, you know, work alongside each other. So it was like, you know, it was very nice to see that, you know, especially like giving Carlos like more of like a much more stable footing this year than not. Then going into Big Red and Ashley, Big Red, you know, being again similar to everyone I said before, background-ish last season, you know, kind of being Ricky's right-hand man, being like the person that's like giving Ricky support, but at the same time, you know, him getting slowly pulled into the Wildcats, and then, you know, him having feelings for Ashlyn, and then having those feelings, you know, brought back to him, and then actually now being in a relationship, and like kind of again like brings him, like he wants to go to that next stage, he wants to be the next person of himself, but he's scared because, you know, again, he's never got to be pushed like this before. He's usually like behind Ricky. He's never been at times in front of Ricky, especially with someone next to him on his side. So it was very sweet, like, you know, to see Big Red evolve and like have more of his quirky moments, him eventually owning a pizza shop, well, not owning a pizza shop, but like, you know, him, you know, having a pizza shop with his family. It's just, it's also funny. It all really is, between him and for Ashlyn and for, damn, I forgot his name already. For Ricky. And I will say they kind of cut down a little bit of the Ricky Big Red bromance this season to prefer more for Big Red and Ashley, which makes sense, you know, when you're in a relationship that kind of becomes primary de facto, you know, connection. But he doesn't forget about Ricky. He really does, especially like all the shit that Ricky puts himself for this season. It's just it's not kind for him. It's not kind for him. But for Big Red, it actually, like, you know, he does have some pretty good moments, especially when he does that end credits musical number for Ashlyn during the Valentine's Day episode. I'm like, I want that red suit. I really want that red suit. I don't know how I'm gonna get it. No, I want that red suit. That color was like perfect. Then going into Ashlyn, where like her becoming the lead in the play, where like again, like no one, like not even herself was expecting him. We're like, you know, well, Nini's there. Well, okay, Nini's out. Okay, it's gonna be Gina, because like Gina's just so talented, and like, you know, but again, like that goes back to what I said before, Miss Jen. Like, even though this was never her path in life to be a teacher, she kind of knows what is right for these kids. And her looking at Ashlyn, and like even like me looking at we were at the second episode, looking at the performances, like for the auditions, even I knew like, yeah, no, Ashlyn is Belle. And there is more than, they don't talk about it directly because like they don't want to like do that type of episode in modern day kids tween teen show. They don't want to talk about body image and everything else, but they alluded to it a lot. And like where like Ashlyn even says she doesn't look like the traditional Belle. And for me personally speaking, you know, there's a lot of people out there, you know, I have a couple friends who will jump on this topic in very different circumstances where like they will say like, okay, yeah, no, she does not look like Belle. Belle looks like this from the cartoons. And for my answer of it, it's like, well, actually, no, not really. You know, like a character, like, you know, like as long as the performer can like create the personality and like you make you feel like that is the character, then I think that's necessary. You don't really have to judge it by, you know, skin tone, by body size, by, you know, ethnicity. And again, I do understand there are certain cases where like you kind of have to if it's instilled into their identity. But like, I remember like, for example, an idea of this was like when the Harry Potter West End play, then Broadway play happened, and everyone heard about Hermione's casting, and they're like, "No, that's not Hermione. Hermione is what Emma Watson." But I'm like, yeah. First of all, it's a literary book, and I do understand that at the time when J.K. Rowling was more acceptable, she did say that no, well, I never really wrote Hermione with a certain, you know, skin tone in mind. And this actress embodies the personality of Hermione. So I think she would be worthy. And then by the time people saw the play, she's like, okay, yeah, that is Hermione. I still haven't seen the play. I still want to do so because, you know, it's been on my back burner for so many years. I feel like she bite the bullet soon. But in my brain, it's like, you know, again, if the actor or the performer can perform that role and make you believe as a viewer or in this case an audience member that you are this character, then you are fine. And you know, she does have a lot of, you know, self-doubting moments in the beginning, like just accepting the fact that she is not, like, in her brain at the moment she is not Belle. She doesn't believe she's Belle. She's just like, oh, like when is the carpet gonna fall under my skin? It doesn't really help when like when in the case of like one of the new additions for this season, Lily, her auditioning, like everyone looks at her, it's like, you know, even Ashley, like, oh no, she's gonna be Belle. She's gonna be Belle. She looks the part, she sounds the part, she's gonna be Belle. And you know, by the time like, you know, she flips the script and go to North High and then she becomes Belle over there, it's kind of like again Ashley rethinking of himself, like, am I really Belle? Am I really this character? And again, like juggling things, you know, finally being a girlfriend, having her own little friend clique in with Gina and Courtney, which we'll talk about both of them in a second. But what I can say about that clique is that I found it smart for the writers, like, again, talking about a little bit about the real world influences on this season. Again, Olivia blowing up super huge with her songs. And I will give us a brief aside to the showrunner. I think his name is Tim Feldman. When he was crafting season 1 and later on for the rest of the season, like when it came to the solo songs, like not the performing songs from the original movie or from the source material or the group songs, like when a character is performing a song, most times in a ten, the actor is the actor or actress is actually is behind that song. And I remember a story where like during season 1, it was one of Nene's solo songs that Olivia wrote it, because Tim's like, well, if it's a Nene song, Olivia should be the one to write it, and she did. And again, like, you know, Olivia's always been a songwriter, always been a singer when she was on Disney Channel, and then her transition to Disney Plus was like, no, this is like, you know, you're gonna do it. I want you to do it. And granted, those songs at the time didn't blow up because that was associated with the show. But then when Olivia got the confidence and not the confidence, like the ability, like, you know what, I'm going to try my own thing. I'm going to try my own brand, my own naming outside of Disney, outside of High School Musical. And the way it blew up, like I'm superbly surprised. Like, again, for me, like people just saying Olivia Rodrigo is just like a Taylor Swift, like she blew up, she's popular, and now she's here. Like for me, I view it as like, no, she's from High School Musical. That is, like, she is, like, for me, the Zac Efron for for the show cast. Well, again, I'm not trying to be disrespectful to the show cast. I'm really not. But like Zac Efron's still doing the big stuff. He's still doing the big movie. You're still seeing him in the public eye. Not to say the like Vanessa Hudgens doesn't, or Ashley Tisdale doesn't, or Corbin Bleu. He was in a Little Shop of Horrors production on Broadway recently. Like I'm not trying to say like they don't get work, but like Zach is always out there. Olivia's like a freak. Like she's exploring where Taylor Swift is kind of is, like, or at least on the precipice of it. At least if she continues her same trend. I'm not into music at all like that. I'm just like being a regular casual person, seeing the rise. It's just like damn. Like damn, and obviously, again, like that brings the question: like, is she going to commit to the show? Like, are we gonna have a, like, oh, we got the one big star, we need her to be there, but she's got a recording deal, she's got a tour to do, like she's just got no time. Like, so what do we pursue that? And honestly, like the way they kind of like, and at the same time, pretty much even before everything happened, them writing where like Nini's isolating herself in the artist school. And then these three are like, the primary girls in the main cast were like, we should form our own thing. We should do our own, like, our little clique, form our own friendship. And that kind of slowly evolves as you get through the later seasons. But seeing things here where like, they're them relying on each other, them like really like getting closer with each other, especially with Ashton living with Gina for the season, and then Courtney, again losing Nini for like certain episodes, like having to like rely on like the other Wildcats, and we'll talk more about her up next. But you feel that for them, and I do definitely give a shout out to the writers for like giving them that that opportunity to like really sell that connection with each other. Like they got their own form of unity between them. And then going to Courtney specifically, where like Courtney, like I feel like she's like the biggest one where like she really went out of her reaches this year. Well, again, season 1, she was mainly Nini's BFF, always behind her, always like, just trying to be the positive best friend she can be. And then kind of like having, similar to Big Red, kind of being pulled into the Wildcat circle, getting those little opportunities at the end of season 1, and then realizing, okay, wait a minute, I could really get behind this. And then similar to like how Ricky was like ready to go full backing on the musical front, she was ready to do so too, like ready to audition on her own, ready to like actually try to be one of the primary cast members, to kind of like, again, like it's a positive and negative where like when you're just close to one person, like it's great because like you get to really depend on the person, you can really see them as a family member, but at the same time, like if you're really attached to the hip on them, then you're really concerned of like, well, like are you that type of person when you're not with them? How are you like that? And I think that season, like this season, like kind of like pushes herself out of that zone, and you'll see that more in like season 3 and even a bit season 4, where like, her not being around Nini so much, it kind of explores her character more open to like kind of like express herself more, like kind of like being ready to like be herself, and especially like you see more of Courtney this season, her being more open on the musical front, her being a designer for the costumes, than her working on Big Red's pizza shop, giving her own love interest in Howie. It's like they gave her so much more to do with this season, and and that was acting independently of Nini. It's like they managed to grow her character more in terms of just herself, and also of her independence, of also just giving her own thing that isn't just reacting to Nini, or like helping out Nini at the end of the day. Like she definitely does have that slowly being locked down, and I think that was very, very cool to see of her, to like eventually delve that deeper into her, and then again when Nini's gone for those episodes, we're like, oh, like she's got Gina, she's got Ashlyn, next to her, we're like, they are one united front together, and I think that was just really, really cool. And now going into like kind of like now going into like the big four of the show for sadly for the last time. I'm trying to remember if there's anyone else I missed. I think that was it. I think that was like all the core cast members that I talked about before getting to these big four. EJ. I said this a lot in season 1, and in both during the original run and then the definitive run, and then I said this during season 2 partly. Where like, for me, I always felt like after EJ and Nini broke up, I felt like he just had no more purpose to his character. I feel like he was kind of done. He was kind of like a one-trick pony. And, oh, well, we have a good-looking guy in the cast. We kind of need to find a way to keep him around. And, like, I feel like even they made fun of that in the beginning of season 2 where, like, EJ just felt like he was there. Like, he kind of pushed himself in there where, like, you know, EJ already has his own group of friends with the varsity teams and everything, but him trying to like solidify himself as a Wildcat. I don't know, that felt a bit forced or not really. I can't really tell, to be honest with you. And then, you know, like, again, I was just so worried, where are we going from here? Like, you know, is he gonna drive a form between Ricky and Nene? Is he gonna go like kind of like, you know, just be a background character, kind of be demoted? But no, like, you know, they actually did find organic way, not immediately, but like around when we got towards the middle, we're like, yeah, well, something we forgot, EJ is a senior. He's going to graduate. He won't be part of this team anymore. Well, not in the actual presence next year. So he's really trying to give it all he got. Like, he found this family like towards the end, and it really sucks when like you find out your clique, you find out where you might belong so late into the game, and then you can't go back. It's like, I have no regrets for me personally when I was in high school. Like, I managed to find, at least for the time, like where I felt the most comfortable with in sophomore year. Well, towards the end of sophomore year, and I was just like, well, why couldn't I find this in the beginning? Now, like, you know, we got junior and senior year left, but like, you know, it's not really the same. And I feel like those years were like, it felt so much longer and better because of that. At least how I'm viewing it things. But then that goes back into like, you know, when we get back to EJ, we're like, him wanting to go off to college, you know, him as trying to be like, you know, proclaim himself as a legacy, and then him trying to like, you always like mention like, yeah, it's my senior year, I'm ready to go, and like, but I love you guys, let's really make every effort there. It's like, it kind of got annoying after a while, but then once we got the whole Duke rejection letter, and then that kind of like really kickstarted his own character story for the season, like with him like kind of becoming that, like, you know, like you think you have what it takes to like really decide where your life's gonna go, and then like that boomerang kind of like, you know, throws you the other direction, like, oh crap, what do I do now? Where do I go from here? And that becomes a little bit concerning for himself, and kind of like, you know, him delving a little bit more deeper with Mr. Maduro, kind of figuring himself more out with Gina specifically, you know. We'll talk more about her next, but with him, like, you know, he was like, you know, just he was, you know, as much as he loved the Wildcat, it's such a weird place for him, because like, he broke up with Nene. He and Ricky aren't exactly on the best of terms. He doesn't want to just be associated with his cousin, and you know, everyone else like he's friends with, but like not like, you know, like, hey, like let's go text all hours of the night. Like, it's just not there. But him and Gina kind of find this, you know, this mutual path of like loneliness in a way, where like Gina doesn't have her mom. She's kind of like, you know, being alienated a little bit. Just like she's ready to start this, you know, new version of herself, but at the same time, she kind of wants to like show everyone what she's really made of. And it's just so hard to balance that. Like, at times she kind of feels like she's pushing people away. And then for EJ, we're like, you know, again, he's the only senior on the team. He's going to be leaving. He doesn't have a designated call. Like, where do things really go for him? Like, you know, he's kind of gone into that self-isolation place, and they kind of have to really lean on each other. And, you know, I think that's honestly very sweet and, you know, organic. And, you know, and honestly, it really feels like, I'm using this as a poor example because I haven't watched this recently, like Cobra Kai, where like, when Miguel and Samantha were dating, and then like, okay, we also have Robbie on the cast, and Miguel and Sam broke up, like, you know, Robbie's with being trained by Daniel. Oh, let's pair those two up, and just have it just come suddenly, because like you're spending so much time together. And I honestly feel like that is well, yeah, in high school, like the more time you spend with someone, it's either like you're gonna be a friend, or you're gonna be dating. And I feel like I understand that front, but like here, it actually does make organic sense. Like it's not like an immediate, like, you know, hey, we're just like suddenly interested in each other. No, it's very much a slow connection, very much as a slow buildup, and then by the time you get to where we are at the end of the season, where like Gina's brother comes in, and like kind of like, you know, like being the older brother, trying to call, it's like, hey, look, you look like just a pretty boy. You look like part of my French, a fuck boy. So maybe my sister like doesn't deserve to be with you. Maybe let me like make a little fib so that you don't, like, you know, go after her. You know, because like, again, for Gina, this is her first everything, and you know, EJ's been in plenty of relationships before, and not to say he's a player. It's just like, I guess naturally in his head, like he's always just been around, just been around with a partner by then. So that kind of, makes sense for it all. And yeah, so I think like at the end of the day, with Egypt, I think like I don't want to say they heard me, but I will say, yeah, they heard me, and they're like, yeah, they gave EJ a good storyline, they gave him a really good character direction, and pairing him with Gina, despite it being kind of like, okay, shot in the fire, but like, you know what, it actually worked out. It really did work out. And then going into Gina, we're like, again, future thinking over here. We're like, like Olivia could be out, it's like, but Gina's still like a very powerful force, and I feel like this is the season where like she begins to like slowly rise from it. Where like, again, like similar to what I talked about before, where like Gina, despite her feeling like she belongs here at East High, she does, realize like, yeah, she's kind of alone. Where like her mom's not there. She does like make it clear she did have feelings for Ricky, and then Ricky being more focused on Nini at the time. I do understand certain things, but like, and then like, kind of where does that leave her at the end of the day? Where like, even when she auditions for the musical, like, okay, Nini's, not here right now. Like, I could probably take the lead spot, and then, okay, no, well, Ashley gets the lead spot. I'm just playing one of the supporting cast members. It's like, okay, I mean, like the irony of like you thinking you finally got where you belong, and then you're still where you belong, but you still got to pay your dues in a brief sense. It does weigh on her. It does very much make her double think herself, like, did I really make the right choice? That like, the guy I like doesn't really like me. The possibilities I want to do isn't really being given to me. Like, did I make the right choice, or am I just meant to go away and start fresh again? Like, do I have to start over again? And again, like, she, not every, high school or not every teenager has that opportunity where like they get to leave and like kind of, start up somewhere else. It's not every day that happens, but in her case, she has. So I'm like, it's not surprising she has the parachute button kind of already ready for her to like utilize, towards things. But like, again, it is the soul builds like when she gets a deeper friendship with Ashlyn to like really become sisters in a way. When she does start to gain feelings for EJ, that is very helpful for her and her journey. Like feeling things are kind of coming around again, and then there was some more where she had to confront things that she wasn't feeling comfortable with. Like, her did having feelings for Ricky, and then feeling like, okay, well, I'm not going to try and intrude, but like, maybe there could be something between us someday. And let me broach the topic now. And obviously it wasn't the right time. And, and then there was a moment during the quinceanera where like she kind of yells at Ricky. Not like yell, like in terms of like a loud yell, but like, hey, ladies and gentlemen, so if you're unaware, my camera just died. Apparently we went out a lot longer than expected, and my camera does have a battery life. So with that being said, we're just going to go straight to an audio recording. So like I was saying, picking up where I left off, I will say for Gina, her having that moment in the quinceanera episode, it was very much a moment of like, yeah, you know what? I can actually stand up for myself. I can actually like say what I need to say on my mind, and you're gonna accept it. You're like, and I feel like the way she said like, we are not dating, and I'm like, okay, we get it. She didn't return your feelings at the time. Like, future writing here, but like, yeah, no, like she was very much not happy with that all went down. But again, it was just a slow burn and everything, and then her introducing us to more of her family for her brother, played by the talented Jordan Fisher. Very nice move. And again, it did help push herself in the right direction. It definitely kind of figured out some things for herself to like really figure out where things need to go for herself in the next iteration of her story. And then going into Ricky and Nini, where again, so much this season, so much. Where like, if you were to begin the season and just assume where things might go, it's not what you mean. It's like so crazy, but it also speaks to like, again, now having watched the whole season again, having like the more perspective of life, more understanding how things are. It's crazy of how in love these characters were at the beginning of the season, and how at the end they were like, okay, so we can pack it up here and get out. Like there was a moment in the end of season 2 where like it's a parallel to season 1, where they're back in the in the dressing room. They're kind of like in the same position they were last season finale about the kiss. And this season finale, they're just like kind of accepting where things are at. But there is no kiss. There is no let's get back together. Let's give this another go. It's just like they know internally like those feelings. It's not that they're gone, but it's very much like they have changed. Like this is not the same Ricky. This is not the same Nene. Like especially not Nene. Like, this is more like Nene than Ricky. Where like I feel like Ricky still has to go through some more development as we get into season 3 next time. But mainly for Nene, we're like again, whether it was writing into Olivia's real world rise to popularity, whether it was forward thinking of like what did she want to do next, like they definitely wrote things around where like a relationship it can be difficult, especially when you're younger, where like at times like there just is too many changes between person A and person B that person A just is not that same person anymore, but person B is, but like person A can't relate to them anymore. Like they have to change to evolve, and then that new person just doesn't fit where per person B is. It does happen. It really does. Like some great relationships have ended in life because not because they hate each other, because negativity. It's more like they just outgrown. Like they have to change, and like the other person, well, they're going to change too, but just not in the direction they want to do. And as much as it hurts, because you genuinely do love the person. Where like for me, I do believe Ricky and Nene will always love each other. But the way this season went was like, no, Nene needs to be a completely different person. She does need to go in a different direction, and Ricky is, in a way, kind of too late. And I'll say that, where like Nene, like the person that he was waiting for, Nene was already that person for multiple years. And by the time he was ready to like kind of get in there and like kind of really join her, we're giving all these changes, giving all these opportunities, giving all these prospect shifts to kind of go on to a new direction, and Ricky just doesn't have them, and like he doesn't fit into things. Where like it was very sweet in the season premiere where like they sang you are the music in me, and it showcases where things were at the time, where like they were very much in love with each other. They very well were always together, always ready to be together. And then obviously, Nene kind of had to begin transitioning elsewhere, kind of having to like, to do that her own thing. And then Ricky at that, we're like, what? I don't need to do my own thing. Like, I'll be around the crew. And he's like, again, like Nene's more direct. They're both slow in realizing these, but like Nene's a little bit more fast than Ricky. We're like, Ricky eventually does deep down realize he kind of does want to do the musical thing on his own, but he always uses Nene as kind of like the crutch of like, oh, I'm only doing this if Nene's in the show, if she's there with me. And then when it comes to Nene, we're like, it's not even the same thing. We're like, Nene loves to perform, she loves to sing, she loves to be on stage, and profess her ability to make people impressed with her through her music, through her performance, through her own form of art. And when she's at the youth conservatory and it just doesn't work out for her, like she just doesn't feel this rigidness of like the classical way of teaching, just doesn't agree with like, and again, you can actually see this in Olivia's music where like, it's not traditional. It's different. It's got its own unique style to things that school at times cannot really guide you, because, school's already is built on a pre-existing structure, and, she's just not, she definitely has her own power. Like she goes away to youth conservatory. After a month, she said, oh, I want to come back to East High. And I'm like, oh, I kind of don't want to be in East High anymore. I kind of want to go do my own thing, do my own musical thing. And like, it feels like, like, again, like, even though this is set in high school, like I sort of get, I'm pretty sure teachers freaking hate her. We're like, the youth conservatory were like giving her homework, giving her tests, and then she leaves. And then like the East High teachers are like, oh, she came back. Now she's going to catch up with the curriculum. Oh, wait, now she's blowing up on social media. I'm like, oh, come on. Like, come on. Like, what's really going on here? But again, this is all part of her story, where like, for me, this is Nene's final arc in a way, where like, she needs to kind of like, everyone knows, like even Miss Jen, like they know Nene's destined for big things. Everyone knows that. Everyone can see it. And whether they, kind of like are behind her, kind of jealous of her, or kind of, saddened by this, they know she's meant for bigger things. They know that. And Nini is at kind of a crossroad where, like, she does love her Wildcat family, you know, regardless of her relationship with Ricky and how things ended or not. But she does love all of them. She does feel at home here. But at the same time, like, she's also realizing, like, what do I want for myself? Where do I want to see myself go? And sometimes that does mean sacrificing, you know, the things you like because but you need to progress further in your career. It does happen like that. And then speaking for Ricky, you know, again, like, one reason I changed my mind about Ricky last year was, like, you know, Ricky was kind of a self-entitled, you know, douchebag, only thinking of himself. And then obviously when he was going through the divorce with his parents and then him having to deal with loneliness and everything, like, it kind of struck a chord with me with that here kind of being like in a way, if anyone remembers this, the pivotal anime show called Total Drama, in their second season, Action, like, you know, this reminds me of Trent and Gwen, that seminal couple back in season 1, the way Trent kind of like spiraled out of control and eventually that broke up with Gwen, that kind of reminded me here a little bit where, like, Ricky kind of spiraled in, like, you know, not obsession, but, like, you know, in need of Nini. It was debatable. Did he love Nini or did he need Nini? Like, you know, there was kind of an obsession whether, like, he needed the text or he needed the call, or, like, you know, like, again, in my opinion, really, each relationship is different, but sometimes you gotta have to read the room. It's like Nini needs her space. You know, she definitely needs, like, her own independence. You know, like, it's great that you both are in a relationship, but, like, you need your own, like, space from each other. If you don't have space for yourself, how are you supposed to grow? How are you supposed to mature? How are you supposed to reset your mind so that when you do go back to your person, you're fully there for them? Like, you know, that's needed. And he kind of didn't really understand it because, again, he was craving for structure. And that was, like, I think, you know, their storyline for this season, where, like, Nini was craving something new to push herself, and Ricky was craving structure. He already lost his parents. He moved out of his house. Those were already done deals. There was nothing he could do about that. But he could kind of, in a way, control Nini. He could probably, like, okay, if I bring Nini back, we're going to be together again. We're going to be in love like we were before the show started. And we're going to be strong because we're going to be in a musical. And then he kind of goes a little bit too far where, like, he tries to put Nini back in the musical post auditions, which, again, it's unfair to the people who have auditioned. They work their asses off to get those roles. Because that's what Ricky needed to have structure again in his life. And, you know, when they officially do break up in the middle of the show, towards the end, he is, in a way, you feel that's kind of lost. Like, what is he doing? Like, you know, like, he's kind of spiraling, but, like, in a controlled way for now, because, like, he just doesn't know where things are going for him. And, you know, like, it comes to a point where, like, even when they, again, going back to that dressing scene, where, like, they both, in a way, kind of finally understand they can't have each other anymore. They are not in the place in their lives anymore to need each other in terms of the dating anymore. And as much as that can suck in the moment, I think more for Ricky than Nini. Nini feels more at peace with it, ready to, like, you know, embrace where her musical career can go. Ricky's more like, he still hasn't really learned his lesson yet, especially when he calls the phone for the first girl that gives him any sort of attention. It's kind of like, that's kind of where things are for him. And it's like, you know, it's not healthy, but definitely it just is, in a way, the evolution he needs to kind of get to where he needs to go to next time. And as well as, at the same time, giving Nini some closure and giving her some, like, leeway in her direction of where things need to go for her next. So for me, like, for the characters, like, you know, they freaking nailed all of them. They really did, regardless of how the overall story goes, the pacing, again, like, you know, it feels like a pre-COVID show, then it does feel like a COVID show. And then there was that one episode that definitely feels like a COVID show. And I'm pretty sure they had to, like, you know, like, oh, you know what, let's do some quarantining with the cast. Let's do this fun episode that also does hit home for Gina and Ricky. And it does work out for them in that in the long run for that. There were some questionable moments with the musicale portion, you know, again, like, you know, kind of limiting High School Musical 2 again to, like, you know, in the beginning and the end with their song choices. They do a fantastic job with the beat songs, fitting them in perfectly to where they're needed in the story. Again, writers knowing how a musical is going to impact the overall story and how it's going to assist in, like, actually evolving it further into, like, you know, making everything kind of coherent with each other, kind of like, you know, paralleling each other. And the musical stuff, you know, again, I will say this much, you know, I feel like this season, when it comes to the original songs, I didn't quite feel fully there like I did with season 1. Like, there wasn't, like, the Born to be Brave moment for me in season 2 than season 1 had. That's just in my opinion, but, like, you know, Seeing the mob song, seeing East High versus North High was great to see. Again, it's just for me, I just don't have that kinship with the Beauty and the Beast song. So like, as much as I do like those performances, it didn't really hit home for me. But not because it was bad, it's just because for me, I don't have the emotional attachment that I had for the original High School Musical songs that we had back in season 1. And that's just my opinion about it. Wholeheartedly. And for me personally speaking, at the end of the day, to wrap it up, I do believe season 2 is much better in a binging style at the second go around after some time has passed. But however, I think the thing to notice here is that they were doing a lot more things this season. This definitely felt, this was a longer season, the longest of the 4. They had a lot to do. They had a lot that they could be accomplished, which it did, but it felt a little bit on the long in the tooth at times, just a little bit. Like maybe they were like an episode over. Like that's just kind of how I feel at the end of the day. And sometimes, even though like I say like when you love the characters, more is wanted. But like for me, it's like to tell the story. Like I don't know why I felt like this was an episode over. I feel like we could have told this in 11 episodes. I don't know what you could have cut really, but like I feel like you could have found a way to like really squeezed in everything in 11 episode. Like the last episode felt like 20 minutes, and it was 20 minutes, and I'm just like, okay, then I guess they had some extra scripts to write. So I'm like, you know what? Let's pump out a 12 episode. Let's just like, and then we'll put a blooper reel. We'll put like a final HSM2 song in there and call it a day. And I'm just like, yeah, that's kind of where it felt like it really did. They could have made episode 11 a super-sized episode, and we could have been done with it. But you know, c'est la vie for that. So for me, at the very end of it, I still really like season 2. I think it's a very worthy addition beyond season 1's. Inclusion into the world. I definitely do believe there could have been a little bit of things that were better from it. But again, considering the factors that were at play here, considering where things were in the real world in terms of like where they were going to with their story, I feel like season 2 did the absolute best it could with what they were presenting with itself. And it definitely does give you a nice conclusion to the season 1 stories, as well as, you know, kind of teeing off to where season 3 and season 4 are going to go, especially when we go back to East High, and especially when we see these Wildcats next time down the road. So for me, I would still recommend the season. It's worth the binge. It definitely is worth like a weekend off and like just binging this whole season in one go. Definitely going to be enjoyed by it, just like how engaging it is, how the characters are, but at the same time, just like a little bit of questionability, like where the story goes at time, and where we're taking about it as an audience member. But yeah. Let me know how you think down below of the second season of High School Musical, the music of the series. How did you feel it? Did you like it? Did you hate it? Let me know. We'd love to have a conversation with you about it. It's been so long since I talked about High School Musical, but I believe that's going to do it for me today, everyone. So if I don't know what this has been, what's to do from ActionX, reviewing the second season of High School Musical, the music of the series, in a full capacity. If you want to know what we're doing normally, what's to do besides our High School Musical at times seasonal reviews, we do other seasonal reviews. Next time, I believe we're jumping back into the world of Katie Keene. I believe that's up next. I'm not 100% certain. We've also, again, we have reviewed the future of this series already. So if you want to immediately jump into season 3, we already have our season 3 episode reviews live already. Same with season 4, so you can pick it up there. But if you care about the definitive reviews, we'll be back next year's summer, which feels crazy to say the least, with season 3. But we're not quite there yet. But again, thank you so much for watching. Please subscribe if you haven't yet. Like, favorite, share if you want to. Ring that bell and follow us on social media. But until we see each other again, for all you Wildcats out there, thank you so much for joining back in a little retrospect, a little bit of a comeback moment for us. I really do appreciate it. Hope I see you down the road in a year from now. But until that moment comes, please stay safe out there. Be good to each other. And as always, peace out.